everyone, and welcome to episode number 18. Yes, I said 18 of UCF Business Talk Live. My name is Roger Phipps. I am the COO and co-founder for Seven Lights Marketing Agency, Bird Eye View Inc., Boss Leadership Solutions, and your consultant for everything business, leadership, ops, and tech. And in this week's show, we'll be talking about mentorship and leadership and the hows and whys and why you should be doing it, why it's important for your team. So as we kind of start the show, let me go ahead and bring the team in. My team, which is my team twice a week, once for the sports podcast and once for this one. So without further ado, let me start off with Josh Lazar. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here.
All right. Awesome. He's super energized. Do you see that, guys? There you go. Like, come on, bro. I know it's late. All right. We're adding Alan Levin back to the podcast and show and everything else. Hey, Alan.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Hey, Roger. Hey, Josh.
Awesome. See, that's
Excited
energy, Josh. That's what excited to be here. That's what we're looking for.
I don't know if I need to be over the top about it. It's like, hey, everyone. How you doing? It's Josh.
Hey, you doing your radio voice now? I love it. All right. So, Alan, is that a sport coat I see?
It sure is.
All right.
We got a professional
podcast
here.
We got to see a little bit. There you go. All right.
Nice.
Okay. All right. So Josh is the only one without a sport coat. That's all I'm saying right now.
Wasn't in the show notes. I'll note that for next time.
All right. Well, this week we got a super exciting topic, and actually one that's kind of personal to me. And the reason we're talking about this week is I actually have a story that goes along with this that happened, and I'm excited to share it and kind of talk about it. And I think it really shows why this topic is important and taking the time as a leader to mentor your teams, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with that topic. I'm going to switch us out here. And the first topic is, why should you mentor your team? People when they think about mentorship or they talk about mentorship or, anything like that, people are like, well, that's a waste of time, or they're here to do their job. Or, hey, I've got too much stuff going on. I put in enough hours here. I don't have time to sit down with someone and mentor them. If you've thought or said any of those things along your path, your leadership path, your management path, you're not going to get any farther than where you are today. Because contrary to what those statements basically imply, you are not the driver of the success. Your people are. And in order for you to increase your productivity and your team's productivity and deliver on your part of the organization to the maximum part that you can, you have to invest in your team. And part of that is mentorship. So, I was talking about that personal story. I actually had someone that I was talking to this week at a place that I used to work at. And they told me that they were looking for a new place to go. And I said, oh, well, that's surprising. This person had been there 2 or 3 years. Why would you, want to leave? Bottom line is, this person wanted to elevate themselves. They're in a niche, niche part of the organization. And they wanted to elevate themselves so that they could get into leadership and management on their own. So technically he is a manager title. However, that management title is not really managing anything, right? And the organization and his leader came to him and said, well, we can't afford to do that with you or provide you leadership mentorship or training or anything else because we need you delivering on these things. So cart before the horse here, right? All right. You're turning down the mentorship. You're turning down the leadership opportunity. And I told him, and he knows this because I've worked with him in the past, my component or my response to that conversation would have been, hey, right now is not a good time for us to do that. But I hear you as to why, that you want to do this. Let's come up with a plan. I will spend time with you and give you the time to develop yourself, and let's come up with a plan so that we can replace you, right? To make sure that you have the opportunity to grow into what you want to grow. Well, guess what? Now he's out interviewing for other jobs. So the whole purpose was because they need him because he's got a niche, right? But they're going to lose him because they didn't at least make the attempt to mentor that person, right? So again, either way, they're going to lose him. So they could have either just promoted him, which wouldn't have been the right move because he's not ready, right? But they could have at least helped him work towards it and build his bench so they had someone to replace him so they didn't lose that productivity, and they elevated a person that wanted to be within their organization and grow within the organization. So, one of those things is retention. You want to retain your star performers, right? Number two, you want to make them better. If we're constantly trying to improve our effectiveness as leaders and as managers, right? Because those are two different things, right? We should be fostering mentorship. We should be, whether it's with us or other people, right? We should be fostering that mentorship because that person is growing. And if they're growing, they're performing. And if they're performing more effectively, or they're taking those, for example, leadership skills and applying it to their team. And if they're applying it to their team, then those people are going to get better. No matter what happens, that investment in them and helping them achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve and mentoring them is going to make them better performers, and by extension, everyone around them. And if they are, remember what we started this conversation with, the key to productivity is the team, not you as an individual, right? Then that means you're going to become more effective, produce more, be more efficient, foster more ideas, have more buy-in, and maintain and retain great people. So that's why you mentor your team, right? It's not just to make them better, but it's also to make everybody that they impact better as well. And collectively, that moves you forward. Is it worth your time? This is a perfect example of why it is. Josh Lazar, what are your thoughts on that?
And a lot. And when I was kind of preparing for the show, in a short, succinct statement, I was like, well, you want to find or build the next you. Why are we doing this? Well, at one point or another, Roger's going to want to exit one of his 15 companies. Or 9, but right, you can't do that if you're the company. You can't do that if everything relies on you. Now, you could be bought out and do the 2 years or 4 years and all of that to gracefully exit out and bring in your knowledge and all of that. But that's why I love mentoring both students in a way, right, as what I do as an instructor, and what the people that I have managed as a CIO or IT director and in my business. So to me, it allows you to find the next you. And maybe it's a little idealistic, but the idea that I'm trying to grow and build with is that I don't want to find people, unless they choose to be, that are 5, 10, 15, 20 year veterans of my organization. And hopefully it lasts that long without exits or whatever. We'll see. I want to get people who are good at what they do, love what they do, and if they choose to go elsewhere, we do everything possible to make that happen for them. If they want to build their own company, great too. And the way I've kind of already set it up with some other people, work with us and do what you need to. You could do it in 20 hours, great. That other 20 hours, if you want to build something on your own, that's fine. We are very open for entrepreneurial people to do successful things. And that's where I would want in an organization. That's why I'm trying to build it that way. So why do you mentor? It's just you need to find the next you or build up the next you. That might help your organization. That might help your industry. That just might help others. And that's why I do it. And I absolutely love mentoring people. I love providing knowledge that I've obtained. I love translating that as best I can on a student level. And within my business, I do everything I can to engage and have people part of the processes. So it's not the company of one, it's the company of we. So that's why I mentor as many people as I can, maybe a few too many, but I do my best.
All right. Thanks, Josh. All right, kicking it over to Alan from Smarty Pants with a Z Marketing. Mr. Allen, what do you think?
I think mentoring employees is one of the most important things that you can do. First of all, I think there's an inherent level of appreciation when you do that. I know people that have mentored me, I naturally look up to them and I appreciate everything they tell me. I mean, kind of like Roger, like you mentor me. It's a relationship that can't really be described at sometimes. But if you want your employees to advance, if you want to have more cohesiveness in your company, and you want to have better results and more motivation, and just if you ultimately care about your employees for their career advancement, mentorship is such an important thing. There's a quote that's always resonated with me, which is, what if I train my employees so well that they leave? But what happens if you don't and they stay?
Right.
So I'd rather have an employee that's learned a lot and gain that knowledge so much so that they can leave and advance their career. I'd rather have that type of employee that's someone that barely knows anything and just sticking around for a paycheck. So mentorship to me, I think, means everything. I mean, we learn all these things in life and we continue to grow and we continue to develop and continue to learn, and imparting that wisdom on people that are below you is only, people that are on your team is only going to benefit you and your company. So to me, that needs to be a major cornerstone of your team building exercises, and ultimately reflects on the performance of your company.
Yeah, and one of the things there too is, when we're talking about people going to other organizations, if I don't have somebody that's not leaving their role and advancing within 3 to 5 years, they're either not interested in doing that, and hopefully you've had these one-on-ones and conversations with them, and developed the IDPs that we mentioned before, individual development plans. So you've identified that and given them things that they can do better in their role, right? Or they shouldn't be working for you, because I wouldn't hire that person.
Agreed.
Right. So if I'm looking at someone's resume and they've been in the same job at the same place for 10 years, there's red flags there, right? If I'm hiring a person who's grown within the organization every 3 to 5 years, that's a different conversation, right? So, again, at the end of the day, that mentorship is for you, it is for your team, and it increases your productivity and effectiveness. So it is worth your time, because you're making more of an impact with the 10 people on your team if you spend that time with them and making them better than on yourself and one person that can only affect a certain part of production. So now that we've kind of covered that, let's go ahead and move on to, how do you mentor your team? So what are the different ways of mentorship? How can you provide mentorship, whether it's you providing the mentorship or someone else, right? So it's more about opportunity for mentorship. So one of the things we've talked about ad nauseum is the importance of one-on-ones and their frequency, right? Whether that be biweekly or at least monthly. If you're getting into quarterly, unless you're like a senior executive and you're meeting with someone 2 rungs lower, that's not enough, right? It's not enough time. You're not spending enough time. You're not prioritizing enough. So when you're mentoring, the thing that's important first is trust, right? And the way that you garner trust is being vulnerable. And the way you show that vulnerability is to have that conversation with that individual, right? So during that one-on-one, you're asking them questions. Hey, what do you want out of this? Like, where do you want to go? What are you interested in? What's your, one of the things I always ask whenever I start at a new place is, what's your 1 month, 6 month, 1 year, and 2 year plan, right? And most people don't think about that, because most people don't support that. Leaders don't support that. They don't think about that. And if they're doing that, they're doing a disservice. So first, you want to map out to find out what their goals are, right? And how they align with your ability to support them, right? Also, you want to allow people and expect people, create the expectation that those folks are going to go out and they're going to be able to make decisions, right? So part of this is setting up a plan for them. Part of this is empowering them to make decisions and fail, because you want them to fail forward, right? So it's frequency, right, as well. You want to make sure that they have that expectation. They're coming to you and they understand that these are the times that they're coming to you, giving you an update on whatever it is that you're doing, what they're doing, and you're asking them questions. Okay, what did you run into that was difficult? What's going well? And what do you need going forward? It's your job to support them, right? Now, additionally, once you're going through that process of asking those questions, it may be a situation where they're interested in something other than what you're doing, right? And if that's the case and you identify that, it's important that you find other mentors for them, right? So one of those questions that I do is, once I figure that out, and then whatever they're passionate about, is I will approach other leaders either within the organization or outside of the organization to help mentor them there, right? Also, you don't really, I don't like to bring gender into this, but let's be real. Some great employees, have different experiences throughout their journey that I can't understand, right? Because I don't live it. So sometimes it's also good, when I provide my mentorship, I may also make a suggestion of someone who may have gone through a similar path as what they have, right? So whether that be gender related or anything else, right? Strong leaders in the business community that are female, by and large, have to face different challenges than what we do, or at least what I did, right? So, offering them opportunities or organizations that have strong women business leaders, that gives them an opportunity to also connect with someone who's been through it and how to deal with situations that I didn't have to deal with. So it's okay to mentor them and suggest other people that may be a good fit for them, or organizations that they may not be aware of that may be a good fit for them as well. So that's important. And lastly, it's coming up with a plan, making sure that you have a plan for them that you've come up with together, and that you're holding them accountable for that plan, right? If I'm mentoring somebody and I give them the opportunity to ask questions, or we come up with a goal together, I'm going to ask them about their progress every single time. And if they're not making progress, I'm going to push them a little bit, right? Because part of being a mentor is not just asking questions, it's also taking action. And that's an important part that people miss. It's good enough. It's not good enough to just come up with the plan. You also have to help that person ask the questions. If they're not meeting those targets that they've set for themselves together with you, why? Are you missing time? Are you not getting the resources? Do you not have the capital? What is it that's causing you to do that? And then support and mentor them. And then always be available consistently for them to ask questions. They have to build that trust. And when you have situations where you screwed up that aligns with what they're going through, make sure you tell them that. You don't have to show yourself as being perfect, because you're not. I hate to tell you this. One of your bosses along the way said, man, you really screwed that up, right? And we've all done it. But make sure you share that so that they understand, hey, you're not alone in this. And then give them the opportunity and say, okay, now that we understand that this failed, how do we pivot and move forward? So pick them up, dust them off, just like when your child scrapes their knee when they fall off their bike. You pick them up, dust them off, make sure that's not infected, throw them back on their bike, and let them go at it again. So that's my tips for mentorship. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to kind of talk about how to mentor, or what things that have worked with you with mentors. So I'm going to go with Josh Lazar. Give us some examples of mentorship that has went well for you, or things that you have done for others.
So there's two ways on the how of this. There's one that I love talking about in many aspects of business, which is show, don't tell. It's an improv ideology, if you will, and I'm sure it comes from other places too, but I learned it from improv classes. And yeah, sometimes you literally need to be the example for those who are trying to mentor. Whether that is being present in conversations, whether that's showing them how a leader should lead because they want to be the leader. Roger, in your example with the person that wants to move up or elevate their role, but you need to do this job, right? I hear it all the time. It happened to me. When I was trying to elevate from a managerial role to a director role, I was told multiple times who's going to replace you. Well, that's your job now because I've left to get and elevate that role. So when at that point in that organization, my mentor left. So it is a very interesting dynamic. And what I've done mostly is two things. One is show, don't tell. I act and encourage and put forth the actions I would want to see in the future me in the role I'm in. So if I'm a CIO and IT director, I'm doing strategic planning and I'm tying that to operations and making the things fit nicely. And so the baseline technology is working, but we're really getting above baseline and working on projects and moving the organization forward. And then doing more of the high level work, because there's a lot of people who are in CIO and IT director roles that may have been there for a while that aren't at that 10 or even 50-foot view and are still in the weeds. I also do my best to, within my own team, I do my best to start with contracts, not official contracts, but we talk about the things that we want to do in the quarter or the year. Usually I start with the year and then I break it down and check in frequently from that, because I love pre-mortems. I love trying to figure out what can make this partnership, this employment agreement, this contractor, this project we're working on fail before it happens. Like what is the worst case scenario? And if we do that, and you work your way backwards to, okay, well, these are the things that'll fail this project or this agreement or this mentorship or how we're working together, then I go all the way back and say, okay, well, how do we not do that? And my favorite way to do that, on the how of mentoring, is through contracts. Something I gathered from another CEO that really is intriguing. You basically have your own ideas of what it is. You have the person you're mentoring, their ideas, what that looks like. You come together and you make an agreement. You know, what's good look like? What's great look like? What does disaster look like? And you go back to it frequently throughout the year in individual conversations, as Roger was saying, and you check. If you do that, it can be similar to the one-on-one situations and things like that. But if you do that, you all know what the goal is. And if either side is lacking, then you can point it out. And I wouldn't say call them out to it, but at least point, like, as a CEO, hey, CEO, you told me we're going to do this and you're not doing it. And vice versa. Hey, IT director, you're not doing this, but you should be doing it. And it kind of works together as this kind of living document where you can have good conversations and kind of take if you choose to, take the managerial role out of it and get to the facts that you talk to. So those are the two ways that I've mentored others, and that I like to mentor people, and I like to be mentored by others. It's really kind of showing what's going on instead of just telling you something, and having I would say agreements. Contracts mean something. I'm in the legal industry. A couple of you kind of do some legal marketing too, right? It's not a formal contract, but it's just really agreement between a mentor and a mentee saying, this is what we're going to do together and this is what this looks like. So those are the things that I've done, and so far so good. I will say, we were talking on the what might not work, and I can take that later if you want, but I can tell you from my experiences, what doesn't work is silence. What doesn't work is micromanaging. What doesn't work are things that make you feel lesser than in any way, shape, or form. I don't care if you're managing someone. I don't care if you are their paycheck. You are the reason that they can do the things they want to do in life at this point. They're still a coworker. Don't care what your title is. They're a coworker. There's someone working with you, and there's someone that should be respected. And unfortunately, there's been times where I've been on the other side of someone who didn't respect me, maybe as a person, don't know, but definitely what my role was, even though at certain times I had awards on the wall saying I was pretty good at what I did and didn't care. So that's the way you can really hurt relationships in mentoring is really not showing and giving really poor effort and not caring about people. That's just been my experiences.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, from my experiences of being both a mentee and a mentor, I can speak to what resonates with me. And first and foremost, I feel like I need to build rapport, whether it's with me as a mentor or me as a mentee. I need that rapport. So it's not always about business all the time or always about the job, but I want to build a rapport. Then for me, like communication and active listening is just very, very important. Like staying in constant communication and listening to what my employees are saying. Maybe it's, or someone I'm mentoring, reading between the lines, allowing them to express their thoughts, their concerns, their ideas, being able to ask a lot of questions. I'm a firm believer in no question is stupid. I ask a lot of questions, and maybe I annoy people by asking so many questions, but I can appreciate that. And for me also, the final thing that I feel is super important is encouraging independence. Like you said, Roger, kind of failing forward. I don't want them always, someone I'm mentoring, always rely on me. Like, I think you got to empower them to, take ownership of their choices and become a little bit self-reliant, but you're still there to give them feedback and, have that communication. And also, celebrating their achievements. I think that's a big part of mentorship for me is celebrating the achievements and acknowledging the growth and the progress. So ultimately, I think all those can be bundled up into just, leading by example. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. But for me, I think a lot of it comes down to communication and listening, really listening. And, we could fail forward and still grow. And just always, of course, you got to evaluate everything too, right? That's where those monthly or bi-monthly meetings come into play. What can we see that could have done better? What were the wins? What were the losses? And all of that. But, just leading by example.
Yeah. So, you hear me say that a lot, failing forward faster, right? And the whole point behind that is you learn a lot faster. You learn what you get to, what not to do a lot faster, which helps you pivot to either another way of doing things or the solution. And you only get that if people are okay with the fact that they're going to fail. And then you only get that with trust. And then you only get that with support when you're mentoring people. It may be just a quick conversation where someone's upset about something. You pull them to the side. You don't do it in front of everybody, right? You say, hey, this was okay. Let's figure out how we move forward from here. Because the more you do that, the better. And I'll tell you how that affects culture in one of our next little bullets here. So the next thing on our list and our questions is, why does mentorship make you a better leader or manager? So hold on a second now. We've been talking about how this provides value to your team, but what about you, right? How does this impact you and your ability to be a leader and your ability to manage? Well, I can tell you this right now. Just like you make mistakes with different things, you also make mistakes as leaders. And the only way you figure that out is when you talk to people, right? So it may be other people mentoring you, or it may be your people mentoring you. So one of the things that's very, very important is different people take things different ways, right? Number one. The way you approach something, we've talked about it when we were talking about communication, can dictate whether those things actually move forward and are a positive change for them. And in order to leadership by definition is influence through trust, right? They have to trust you enough to be able to tell you when you screw up. Now, they shouldn't be doing it in front of everybody and their mother, right? But when you're in that setting where you're having that conversation, you have to be open enough to ask that. So for me, how I get there is whenever I have my weekly or monthly one-on-ones, I always ask 3 questions. Well, 4 technically. What can I do better for you? What can I do better for the team? What can I do? What can the team do better amongst each other? And what should I keep doing? So as important as figuring out when things go sideways for your team, right? Those questions not just apply to them, but it also applies to you, because you learn what does work. And what does work if you move jobs or you move cultures or you move businesses, or you open up your own business, doesn't necessarily work for the other teams that you're working with and the different personalities. So as you learn personalities, as you learn your team, as they tell you what works for them and what doesn't work for them, every single one of those things is a tool that you stick in your tool belt that you can use not just in the position you're in, but in the position going forward, or when you're all my team members and myself, I manage, or I lead up, I lead down, and I lead sideways. There are going to be times where you have to lead your leaders, right? And those tools that they're giving you, because you're listening to them and you're building that trust and you're asking their opinion and you're supporting them and they're mentoring them, they're not scared of you because you're their boss. That benefits you. That makes you a better leader. It makes you more effective. It makes your ability to influence the rest of the teams better. Because I can tell you this right now, if someone goes into that relationship with you in that mentorship relationship and you are just terrible at it, they're going to tell everybody else and don't even bother. So now you've lost the ability to influence not that individual that you're working with, but everybody, right? So make sure you're using those opportunities to learn, because if you do it and you follow through on those solutions that they've given you, or those things that they've pointed out that you need to tweak, and then you report back to them, that trust skyrockets and you're going to be more effective at your job, because people will be able to give you those things. And guess what? That leads to management results, right? Leadership leads to management results. You're going to have people that are more engaged. You're going to have people that want to show up. You're going to have people that ask questions of why are we doing things that you haven't thought about because you don't see what they do every day. And that leads, incremental change leads to transformative results, right? Incremental change leads to transformative results. And the only way you get there is by continuing to build this culture of learning. So, Josh, I've kind of been on my my soapbox here. I tend to do that every once in a while. Josh, what about you? What do you think about how mentorship can make you, as the leader who's mentoring, better? What can you learn?
So it's like you were actually looking at my notes, right? when I was doing this, because so many things that you said resonated both for me as someone who has had mentees and mentors and how they've interacted with me, and as someone who is mentoring both students as an instructor and the people that I work with at Tech Think Tank. So I'm going to just take a piece of that, right? Because you are correct. Every leader, every person makes mistakes. We all do. No one's perfect. But it's how you react to those mistakes. And if you're willing to listen, and I don't mean just hear, but listen, those are the things that allow you to become better, to grow in your mentorship, to grow as a mentee if you are being mentored, and to do better business. And that's a two-way street. You can provide great ideas and thoughts. And that, sometimes when you say things over and over and over again, you tend to do it yourself as well. Classic example, at UCF, I teach a course about presentations. And the things I'm telling my students to do in their presentations, I hear myself doing on this podcast. I hear myself doing on the other podcasts we do. I hear myself doing it when I'm doing other presentations, in the mini presentations in the middle of class to build them up. So that's a way you can take your mentorship and the things you already know and reinforce them in yourself, right? That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is being able to listen as a leader, take feedback, constructive criticism, right? You don't want to be the person being swung at, right? But if you're giving constructive criticism or things that can be improved for their lives, for their work, for their process, and you actually make the change, that's why I said, Roger, that really resonated. If you actually take action and do something, that provides volumes of wonderful things for your business. It tells people you are listening and can take change. Worst case scenario, if you can't change it and it's not your role, or we talk to anyone who's a business leader, but sometimes you're beholden to someone else. If you can't do that, and you at least acknowledge that ask and say, at this time we can, or we looked into it, and as long as you acknowledge and listen, and if you can make that change, if it is your company and you do, it's wonderful. It really is. And it makes you a better leader. It means you are listening. It means the people who are probably closest to your clients or closest to the action, depending on the size of your company, have the faith that they can come to you with these things. You'll actually listen and do something, and you have this nice continual improvement cycle. If we want to use some of the software terms that I'm used to with my software development teams, we have this continuous development and improvement of your organization. So mentorship really is a two-way street. It empowers you to provide knowledge to maybe the future you at your own company or elsewhere, but it also can become a mirror of how you can do better yourself in all the roles you do.
All right, awesome. So Professor Lazar is professing to himself. So like it. All right, Alan, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to agree with what everyone's already said. I mean, all those are
great. We'll move on.
No, it's just, I mean, a lot of great points. I mean, I guess I can add a little bit, but I mean, I think, one of the main ways it makes you a better, leader and better mentor. I mean, you're building a skill set when you're doing this, and you're really kind of, growing that skill set. And I think it really contributes to just your personal growth. I mean, if you can, learn and adapt and help, develop new strategies for supporting and guiding your employees. I mean, there's just so many benefits of it. And obviously, I think one of the big things is your organizational culture. Is just going
to you're getting into our next topic. I like it.
Yeah, I mean,
the
if you're a mentor, that's going to breed a better culture. And when you become a mentor, you hope that those mentees will ultimately become mentors for new employees or younger employees or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, improve teamwork, collaboration, I don't know, a sense of community between all of your staff and your team, just reinforces all the positive culture. So for me, I think the biggest thing is just that personal growth that you get from it. That's always going to carry on. And if you can impart that on your employees, your culture is going to be good. And that's contributes to the lasting legacy of your company.
Awesome. All right. I think, as you said, you segued very nicely into our next topic, and I mentioned culture a couple of times, and I almost tripped up and started going down that train. But now it's time to actually talk about how mentorship impacts your culture. So, mentorship, Josh, you mentioned something about leading the way and showing, not saying, right? So if you want an organization where your leaders that you're bringing up, right? So whether you're a CEO or a founder, or whether you're a VP or a senior executive, whether you're a manager, whatever, right? When you're providing that mentorship opportunity and you're demonstrating to folks how to mentor others, right? you're then developing those skill sets for others. So let's say you're a manager, right? So you're not a VP, you're not an executive, you're not a co-founder, you're not a CEO, you're none of those things, right? And you're living within an organization that has a culture that focuses on mentorship. That means that you have the ability as a manager to imbue that to your team, right? And one of those things that I said earlier is you should be leading up, you should be leading down, and you should be leading sideways. And that's for every member of the team, all the way down from the top to the bottom of that organizational chart. By providing those mentorship opportunities for that person, you're teaching them how to mentor others. And a lot of times, if you've got folks that are doing that really, really well, you will also empower them to mentor their peers, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're constantly mentoring their peers, but there may be a situation they're stuck in, or a situation where someone gets frustrated or upset or whatever, and you're demonstrating that positivity and that skill set to say, okay, dude, we got this. How do we move forward? What went sideways and how do we move forward, right? That mentorship impacts your culture and a culture as a whole of being open, of being supportive, of being positive in problem solving when there's a challenge, right? And having every member of the team help the other member of the team without you dictating it on how to move forward faster past a challenge that they run into, because they're going to run into challenges all the time. So people, if you don't have a culture like that, what ends up happening is people just kind of hide their mistakes and hope nobody notices. But if you're hiding mistakes, then you're missing opportunities in process, in people, in profitability, and everything along the way. So it's important to have that open relationship. It's important to be okay making a mistake and calling it out. It's important to ensure that people feel like they're empowered to come up with a solution. And it's important that they feel that they're supported. That trust, right? Because otherwise everybody's going to live in a box and they're going to come and do their 9 to 5 and they're going to go home. And they're going to do the least amount of possible as you possibly can. People they're not efficient or work as hard as they can because you tell them to, right? It's because you give them the opportunity to do the most with what their role is and an opportunity to succeed. You're invested in them doing well. And you show that by mentoring, by taking your valuable time and showing them that they're valuable enough to you for you to help them get better. And if you do that, people are engaged and they will provide way more opportunities for you to move forward. And that permeates. As a leader, the higher you go up, you should be setting that expectation and practicing what you preach, because over time, as that goes down and you set that expectation for everyone, that becomes your culture. And that is vital because that's your opportunity to say, this is how we do things. Right? All right, Josh Lazar, what do you think?
So yes, let me go the other side of that. You were correct. And when done right, being a mentor and mentoring your peers, the people you employ, the people around you, that can do major things for you and your company. And we all talked about that for a while. And that is great. I want to talk about the other side of that, because mentorship can also impact your culture negatively if you're not doing it the right way or not doing it at all. So I want to take that aspect of it. If your goal is, like Roger was saying, we're going to go 9 to 5 in this cube, do this job, build this widget, build this code, get out. There's nothing wrong with that. You just can't have a company full of that per se, because at some point you want to innovate. You want to do interesting things. And not everyone's going to want to do that, but certainly people are. And if you don't have the space for that to happen, and if you're not building people up and sparking curiosity, it might not be a fun company to work for. You might not be a fun person. Fun is maybe not necessarily the best word, but you might not have the same intrigue, or people might not be drawn to do your role. And as soon as they find someone who pays more money to do the same widget, they're out.
Yeah, they're not going to buy into your mission, whatever
Correct.
problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and is there a space for people who just want to sit down and program? Heads down, absolutely. Is there a space for people who want to just do their job and nothing else? Absolutely. But that isn't going to be 100% of your company. It's not going to be 100% of the people you manage. And it really shouldn't be.
Well, and I will say to this too, though, even those people that want to come in here and do their job, there's things within their space that they want to do better or explore. So you should still provide those opportunities for those people, because they also have the ability, even if, hey, I'm a senior loan processor and this is as far as I want to go to my career, I'm going to ride out to retirement. If you're still spending the time with them and giving them the opportunity to use those skills that they've already learned to help the younger folks, right, or less experienced, they don't even have to be younger. It's wrong. I shouldn't have said that. Less experienced folks. Then you're providing them to opportunity to mentor on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think mentorship can impact your culture of your organization in a very positive manner when it's thoughtful and timely, and you actually do it, right? And the opposite, if you don't mentor, if you don't put yourself or your team or your managers out there to encourage growth, you're going to probably stagnate, and someone else is eventually going to eat your lunch if that's what you're in your industry. That just, in my experiences, you want someone to build you up and to spark your interest and to do the fun stuff, or in your regular role too. But the fun stuff is always nice.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I mean, all great points. Obviously, mentorship can have a profound impact on your culture. I mean, for all the reasons stated above, some of the things we've talked about already. I mean, obviously, you want to boost your retention, and it helps with performance and strengthens the values in your company and drives the performance. But I think, I guess maybe one thing that wasn't mentioned, like, I feel like it also encourages like innovation, right? If you foster that environment where new ideas are welcomed and encouraged because of the mentorship you're providing, who knows, you could have a great idea that comes through because they feel empowered to do that. So, I mean, there's just so many benefits of having that, amazing, kind of mentorship culture within your organization. So that, I think, just the impact is very profound, and it's going to ultimately strengthen your team. It's going to, improve your employee engagement and the communication in your company, and ultimately, it trickles down and creates an environment that's where people want to come to work every single day, and they want to perform, they want to create, they want to innovate. I think it's such a benefit, and obviously has a major impact on the organization.
Awesome. So since you're up there, and Josh and I kind of like wax poetic, I'm going to let you continue. Talk about trust and loyalty and how that fosters it going both ways between you and the mentor and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a huge thing. I think there's this thing with a relationship with, boss and an employee where, some people feel like, I gotta cater to my boss, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. But that trust and that loyalty absolutely goes both ways. If, if I can't trust my employee, they can't trust me, vice versa. It's going to negatively impact the culture. And it really does just goes both ways. When you can have that open communication, when you can have that trust, that will breed that loyalty. There's just nothing like going into, I don't know, because I've been at companies where it just seemed like management or people that, you know, I reported to just didn't care. They didn't care if I grew. They didn't care about communication. And what made me loyal and want to stay there? What made me want to do anything but, you know, just get out of there as soon as I could, not want to arrive early, not want to stay late, not want to work hard. So, you know, with that throws trust and loyalty out the window when you have that type of culture. But I've been in environments where they really build you up. I want to be built up. I mean, you can be around someone, a manager, a team, and know within like 5 minutes, if it's a good place to be. You know what I mean? Like you can just really feel that. And it's so, when there is that trust and loyalty, it's so natural. It's a natural motivation is inside of you to try harder, to please, you know, the company in a good way, to look good in front of clients, to you know, innovate in the company and really have its best interest at heart. So yeah, it goes both ways. I got to trust, you know, what my team is doing. They got to trust that I have their best interests at heart and that I have a plan for them to succeed and grow and mentor them and all of that. So it absolutely goes both ways. And you're not going to run a good organization and have a good culture if it doesn't run both ways.
All right, Mr. Lazar.
Yeah, a lot of yes ands over here. If I'm using all my improv references, it is 100% true that when you have a good mentor-mentee relationship, there is tons of trust and loyalty. You'll see this when your employees stick around, even though you already know they can get a better job with more money in your or another industry. That's when you already are in a great relationship. I believe I've done that as an employee one time in my career, maybe two, but definitely one. And then I've also, but I'm fairly certain there's 2 or 3 people who I currently work around and with that wouldn't be working with me today if I didn't build that rapport with them, mentor-ish, if you will. Yeah, mentor-ish, if you will, for years, if not a decade. So that's really where these things kind of merge in the center. Because if you are looking to build your own business, you are probably going to lean on people that first of all, you have to mentor people, right? But your new hires, your new employees could be former mentees or people that refer you because you've mentored enough people that you trust how they work and you know how they work. And if you make that type of, if they make a suggestion, they are probably someone you're going to hire. So trust and loyalty, when it comes to mentorship, is the where you want to get to. I don't know if it's quite the pinnacle, but it's darn near close. If you're talking like hierarchy of mentor needs, we're kind of self-actualization is probably where trust and loyalty are, if not darn near up there. And and a little bit more to the other side, you can usually break trust lightly, maybe once. Lightly. It takes time to repair that. And I'm talking about mentoring relationships. But fool me once, right? Fool me twice. You know the rest. I don't have to go into it. That's what happens in mentoring.
Don't fool me again.
Yeah. Don't fool me again.
You won't fool me again.
Yeah. So you trust is key. And you can even do some things that aren't the best on either side and break it a little bit. But if you can't repair it, you're done. I mean, that's just that relationship, for what that feels like to you in a mentor-mentee relationship, over. So that's why it definitely does go both ways. And you have to give as much as you receive. Sometimes you have to give it as a mentor. Sometimes you have to even give more. And eventually you hope it all gets back to you, right? I think Roger might live and breathe that a lot too. You give out, and you try not to give too much of yourself because you need enough of you to do the things you need to do as a person. But the more you put out there and the more you help, that also goes both ways too, because eventually people start gravitating towards you, and you get, well, maybe your direct messages on LinkedIn aren't always like mine. I know some people who have a lot more followers than me that are inundated, but every week or two you get a, hey, I see that you're doing all these podcasts and services. Let's talk and see if we can find some synergies. That's what you get after mentoring and building in public and working together with people over time. So yeah, it is definitely a two-way street, but when you get there, it's wonderful. And I can say I've done that. I've gotten there with a few people on both sides, mentor and mentee, and I love those relationships.
So to borrow from you, Josh, yes, and look, a lot of great points with that. Trust and loyalty, you're talking about the aftershocks of that, right? So I still have people that reach out to me 12, 13 years later. In fact, I had someone reach out to me yesterday, different from the story that I talked about before, that the last time I saw them or worked with them was 2017.
Whew.
So, people appreciate when you provide a safe zone and when you show that you actually care about them, right? One of when I started working on the previous company I was with, the fintech that you guys all know about, the way I was connected was through someone that I'd worked with in the past at a previous role. It said, this person, you need to talk to this person be a great, fit for what you're trying to do. Turns out, that person reached out to me, the owner of that original founder of that business reached out to me, and it was a great fit. And I learned a lot, right? And it provided a lot of opportunity for me. But going back to trust and loyalty, you, Alan, I think you said this, and this was going to be part of what I said, is trust, right? Being able to trust your employees to do and to act independently without you having to micromanage or feel comfortable having to look over their shoulder for everything. If you build that trust, it goes both ways. You're building trust there. You're getting trust or receiving trust from your person, right? In your leadership and your ability to influence, which is how you lead. But you are also able to imbue your trust in that person to be able to act independently of you, right? And when you do that, that's a force multiplier. And on top of that, it's also something that allows you to get more done. So you're not having to be in the nitty gritty. And that's hard for small business owners, especially. That's something I've run across everywhere. Josh, we've talked about it. Alan, we've talked about it, right? Is making sure you've got that trust and you've built that trust. You've spent the time training, you've spent the time mentoring, you've spent the time giving them opportunities so that they can now pick up the football and run, right? And if they can do that, that gives you more time to do other things to grow the rest of the business. And that goes for everyone along that organizational chart. And loyalty, we kind of talked about that earlier with that example. But it's also loyalty to your mission. It's not just loyalty to your business, but also loyalty to your mission. Can you trust that those individuals, every time they interact with a client, right, are going to have those be bought in enough to care and go the extra mile for that client experience? Because ultimately, the client is the one that's paying your bills. And if you build your reputation around that, or if you make that sale, and then you can deliver on that promise, and so can the rest of, it's one thing if you deliver on that promise. It's another thing if you can trust that the rest of your employees can deliver on that promise and execute on that mission, then you're going to have a very successful business because those people will stay, right? You've done all the work to attract them. You've spent a lot of money to bring that person on board, in marketing materials or in man hours, or just in personal investment and blood, sweat, and tears. How do you keep them, right? And to be able to trust your employees to be true to the mission, be loyal to those values, and provide that experience for your clients, it's what's going to make you a success. All right, last point for this evening, follow through. We kind of talked about that a little bit, how important it is to follow through on that mentorship, right? Follow through on that time commitment. Things are going to happen where, oh my gosh, this meeting is going to happen during this slot. There may be a couple of times that you can move it, but be consistent when you say you're going to be there and you're going to set that time aside for them. that shows how important you are and their success. They are, and their success is to you. And that is vital. Don't commit to it if you can't do it. Because it's just like with a child. If you commit to something and over again, you don't do it, they're going to lose that trust in you, and you've thrown anything, any good graces that you've had or good intentions out the window. So make sure that you're following through and make sure you're being consistent to continue that trust and that loyalty and all of the great things that we talked about. And then when they give you feedback, make sure you're following through and you're checking in to make sure that they are seeing what you're doing and that it's having the desired effect, right? That follow through of not just making the change, but making sure the change that you agreed to is creating a different experience for those folks is vitally important to be able to lead. And when you're asking them to do different things, like through a change culture, right? Because people don't like change, to change what they're doing, it makes it a lot easier to ask them to do that. If there's a tough time that you need to, work some extra hours, you're not going to have to ask them to do it. They're going to want to do it because you're going to want to do it together and overcome that challenge, right? So there's a lot of things, but you have to follow through on your part. Don't just provide them with lip service. Alan, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, that follow through to me is probably the most important element of this. I mean, that was something that I realized I needed to work on. I had an employee tell me probably like a year ago that there was a meeting, a monthly call that we were supposed to have every single month. And, she didn't show up and was saying like, oh, I didn't realize that, they were important or, that they needed to happen every month. And that was when I realized that if there's not those follow-ups, then there's no trust. And, the consistency, breeds that trust. It breeds the accountability. So the follow-up to me, I mean, that's everything. I mean, that's where, you're going to build that trust, where you can give that feedback, all the improvement that's going to happen. And it demonstrates commitment to that, and they know they can rely on you, and ultimately it's going to have that positive impact that we all wanted to have. So that the follow through, if you can't be there and showing up, like they always say, is what, half the battle or whatever. Maybe it's 100% the battle. You got to show up. So without that commitment, without that showing up, you're not going to have the trust, and then everything else is going to fall through from that. So follow through is so key.
All right, awesome. Josh,
you know what? We've said this a couple of times, and I'm like, yes. I really agree with everything you have to say, and I will yes and Alan's. There's some things I'm really great at follow through, right? And I think the people that work with me would agree with that. There's some things I need to improve upon too. So I'll use the time just to say, if this is something that or if this resonates with you because you're saying, yeah, I need to do that too. Take the time right now. Pause this. It's a live stream. So if you're watching live, all right. But if you're listening later, pause this and make the calendar appointment. Make the list of what you need to do and take action on it, because if you are listening and you're enjoying this and this all resonates, you can pause it when we're not live and take action, because that's the follow through you're going to have for what you're learning from right now. Because that's what I'm probably going to do after this podcast, is go back to the one or two things. I'm like, did we really finish up the conversation with two of the people I'm working with and make sure I get that done. So just make that your follow through right now.
Awesome. Great advice, Josh. And that takes us to our closing thoughts. And it takes us to 104. So let's see if we can hit our magic 107. All right. So basically for me, it's just making sure that you're creating the opportunity, listening to the feedback, following through with the solution, and then make sure that you're verifying, right? It's trust, but verify that what you've set forth is actually happening, and then be open to pivot. And make sure, lastly, that you're consistent. It is all for naught if you do it 1 or 2 times and then you don't do it for the rest of the year. The only thing you've done is dug yourself a hole the opportunity when you actually have the time, because nobody's going to believe that you do it. So make sure that you're doing that and make sure you're consistent. All right, Josh, any closing thoughts, and tell folks where they can find you?
Sure. I agree. Yeah, I'm yes-anding one more time, but yes, Roger's right. And again, take action now, like literally now. If you can, we're about to close up. I don't care if you know where you can get at me. If you just do that now, that might be the best use of this hour, or maybe 36 minutes if you did it at double time post live, right? So take some action now, because sometimes you need a sign. This is it. I'm Josh Lazar. I do through Tech Think Tank. We do a lot of technology and operational services and assessments. You can reach me at techthinktank.com, or you can email me at josh@techthinktank.com. Also do some software development too with some small teams. If you're interested in any of those services, same places.
All right, awesome. Alan, same thing with Smarty Pants with a Z.
Look, yeah, everything everyone said today was awesome. I mean, these are really actionable tips that you can take, and they make an impact. But yeah, for me, I mean, the closing thoughts are some of the things I already said, which is build that rapport, establish those clear objectives, create a plan, provide that guidance, listen actively, just communicate clearly, and then follow up and be consistent. I mean, everyone's already said, Josh just said that, be consistent, and that's what matters. And then as far as finding me, as you know, I'm Smarty Pants with a Z. You can find me at smartypantsmarketing.com, on LinkedIn under Alan Levin, or email. I'm always checking. So Alan, ALLEN, at smartypantswithaz marketing.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. All right. And that leaves me. I also make sure before we leave you that you check out goldenknightsclub.com. That's our platform to allow fellow UCF alum to connect with each other, designate what you're looking for as far as services are concerned, and what you can provide. It's searchable so that you can connect with fellow Knights to solve the solutions that you need to. Let's go ahead and support each other as much as we can. And as always, for all of your marketing needs in small business, legal, medical, higher education, VR, 3D, video, you can reach me at r.phipps@sevenlights-agency.com, or visit our website, sevenlights-agency.com. Or for your consulting needs, you can also reach me at bossleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. And in the description, you'll find that if you have any lending needs, small business lending, medium-sized lending, I can help you with that too. And you can reach me at that bossleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. I saw a lot of you on there. We're listening live. Thank you for spending your evening with us. Always remember to like, subscribe, and grind.
They're waiting for